They say every nightmare begins with a secret kept hidden for far too long. And perhaps one of the most terrifying secrets of the 21st century is who committed the crimes, but who funded them, and why. His name has become synonymous with global fear, Osama bin Laden, but few ask the real question: where did he get the money? How could a man exiled from his own country sustain a terrorist network for decades, with sophistication that rivaled international organizations? And why, despite all that we supposedly know, are there still so many questions left unanswered? Born into one of the richest families in Saudi Arabia, Osama bin Laden was not a rebel raised in poverty. Quite the opposite. He was the son of Mohammed bin Laden, the founder of the Bin Laden Group, a construction empire trusted by royalty, responsible for rebuilding Mecca, and a symbol of how religious zealotry and royal capitalism could coexist. His family controlled billions, with ties to governments, monarchies, and elites from both East and West. And yet, even after Osama was accused of orchestrating the deaths of thousands in 9/11s, his family remained untouched, still powerful, still protected. Their assets were not globally seized. Their financial networks were never fully exposed, and many crucial questions simply disappeared, as if by design. Osama once claimed he no longer relied on his family's wealth, but documents, shadowy transactions, and odd patterns of protection suggest otherwise. Could money from the family empire have continued to flow through offshore companies, charitable fronts, and intermediaries into the hands of extremists? Were there Islamic humanitarian funds that quietly vanished into black holes of untraceable finance? Or is that how empires protect the truth by casting shadows over themselves? The 1990s were a golden era for Osama. Even exiled from Saudi Arabia, he smoothly operated financial networks stretching from Sudan to Afghanistan. The question remains: who enabled him? U.S. intelligence once pointed to real estate deals in Africa, hawala money transfers across the Middle East, and generous donations from wealthy Arab individuals. But most names were never released. And curiously, some of those blacklisted after 9/11s were later removed without explanation. The bin Laden family insisted they had severed all ties with Osama after his radical turn. But in a world where assets are hidden behind trusts, shell companies, and layers of legal protection, how do you prove a connection or a disconnection? Some sources claim that by the late 90s, Osama was still receiving dividends from old investments, routed through former friends, neutral attorneys, and offshore structures in the Caribbean. It's unverified. The records are sealed. The people who knew have vanished. And here's the chilling irony. While the world focused on eliminating foot soldiers and bomb makers, the roots of terror, the money, were left relatively unchallenged. Who kept those loopholes open? Who benefited from Al-Qaeda's survival? Could it be that certain global elites, arms dealers, financiers, politicians quietly thrived in the chaos of a terrorized world? A world where fear justified control, invasions, surveillance, and profit. Of course, it's possible all of this is coincidence, that the money trails were just a result of poor oversight, not conspiracy. That the bin Laden family, as they claim, truly cut off all contact, that governments did everything they could. But if that's true, why are so many documents still classified? Why were key financial reports lost? Why did witnesses disappear in strange accidents? We know the name Osama bin Laden. We know how he died. But we don't know, perhaps, we're never allowed to know who built him, who let him operate for so long, and more importantly, why the truth remains buried so deep. This isn't just the story of a terrorist. It's a mirror reflecting a world where power, wealth, and darkness are far more entangled than we dare to admit. There's a strange pattern in every post-terror financial investigation. The deeper you dig, the harder the walls become, records sealed, witnesses vanish, and massive sums of money, suddenly, no longer exist, as if they were never there. This isn't just the case for us investigations. It's the same with the UN, global anti-money laundering agencies, even independent journalists. It's like stepping into a financial vacuum where clues are visible, but accountability is absent. And in that space, the name bin Laden no longer refers to one man. becomes the symbol of a hidden force. People speak of the Bin Laden Group as a shining success of modern Arab capitalism. The company didn't just build mosques and airports. It was a key player in billion-dollar infrastructure deals with Western partners. In the 1980s and 90s, executives from the company met regularly with U.S. officials at the very time America needed allies in Afghanistan against Soviet expansion. Osama, back then, was a celebrated freedom fighter. He was trained, praised, and according to some now suppressed intelligence provided with technical support by Western agencies. But when the ally became the enemy, that chapter was erased. So who benefits when history is forgotten? Who gains when ambiguity is maintained? A former European counterterror official once said that at least 3 countries refused to cooperate when asked for financial data linked to Bin Laden family holdings. The reason: national security concerns. That phrase has become a global firewall against truth. When power becomes the shield, even the greatest crimes can be smothered under euphemisms. And then there are the tax havens where money flows through companies with no staff, no products, no offices, but hundreds of millions in assets. The British Virgin Islands, Cayman, Luxembourg, even Switzerland, all appear faintly in leaks linking back to accounts and trusts with potential connections to Osama's broader network. And yet, none of it has ever led to official investigation. Organizations like the ICIJ release explosive data, but the legal world shrugs. Not enough evidence, they say, or worse, nothing at all. A journalist once traced suspicious funds flowing from investment firms in Dubai to extremist religious groups in Pakistan. After threats, he published one final piece, ending with a line that still echoes. People think they're chasing terrorist money. What they're actually entering is a global maze of alliances where legality and crime blend until they're indistinguishable. Was that what Osama had access to? A system? Not a coincidence. Even after his death in 2011, when the CIA stormed his compound in Abbottabad, one new mystery appeared. How did he live in such luxury, undetected for so long? If he was truly cut off from his family and network, how did he maintain protection, logistics, and stable communication? Some sources within intelligence suggested the cash found in his home was newly printed, issued only months earlier. So someone, somewhere, still had access to global finance and helped him survive. But who and why? And again, the silence. From banks, from governments, from media. It's as if every lead gets suffocated before it breathes light. In this world, truth doesn't vanish. It's twisted, buried, locked behind confidentiality laws, national interests, and political convenience. Truth becomes inaccessible not because it isn't there, but because someone doesn't want us to reach it. Maybe the Bin Laden family really was innocent. Just wealthy people whose name was tarnished by one radical member. Maybe, or maybe, the global system, its finances, politics, weapons, media enabled a man like Osama to rise, and when he got too dangerous, simply erased the trail. We may never know, because history isn't always written by the victors. Sometimes, it's written by those with the most to lose. And those with the most to lose tend to bury the deepest. Here's a truth no one wants to confront. Modern terrorism, ISNT, born in Kavzit, manufactured in boardrooms. When we look back on Osama bin Laden's legacy, what chills us isn't just the horror he unleashed, but the fact that the world, knowingly or not, helped build him. And that truth, if it exists, has been guarded with disturbing efficiency. After his death, one memo found in his compound was barely mentioned in the news cycle. In it, Osama expressed disappointment with those who once supported him. He wrote about hands that once fed me, now turning away and erasing the past. But who were those hands? Family members, financial organizations, old allies? Again, no answers. Even more unsettling, individuals tied to financial networks that empowered Osama continued to appear in global economic forums, corporate boards, humanitarian foundations. They were praised. They were given platforms. No one asked about their past. No one questioned the paper trails, the The system allowed them to re-enter the light, without ever facing the darkness they might have helped create. And here's a curious detail. In 2015, years after Osama's death, the Saudi government quietly acquired major shares in the bin Laden group. Why? Was it consolidation of power or a cleanup of the past? No one knows. And the company's financials, despite public interest, remain locked away. Meanwhile, other companies around the world are investigated for far less. Yet the bin Laden group moves forward, untouched. Maybe it's simple. The world can't afford to tear itself down to chase ghosts. Maybe economic and geopolitical stability is more valuable than full transparency. Because if the curtain were truly pulled back, who would we find standing behind it? How many names, how many corporations, how many governments would be exposed? And so, the story ends with silence. No indictments, no full disclosures, no truth commissions. Just a global agreement of forgetfulness. Just enough detail to soothe. Never enough to truly know. Maybe the family really was innocent. Maybe they weren't. Maybe Osama was a rogue. Maybe he was a creation. Maybe the global order is built on a foundation far more fragile and far more corrupt than we've even led to believe. We don't know. We may never know. Because we're not meant to. And perhaps the most terrifying part isn't what's been told, but what's been left out in the quiet space between the headlines, where questions echo, but answers never come.